What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rock band Nickelback. Basically, this project is called The Long Road, and it came out in the fall of 2003. So particularly with their hit 2001 album Silver Side Up, that was a big deal for Nickelback around that particular time. They helped revolutionize post-grunge as far as that pitch can happen throughout the early 2000s. They had a number of hits off there. Don't remember them as full-blown because it's been a number of years since I reviewed that particular project, but Nickelback was one of the bigger artists out of Nickelback was one of the bigger artists out of post grunge and rock music out of the 2000s decade. I'd have to say in particular, and this is definitely one of those albums that did that in particular. I'd have to say pretty excellent concept kind of get this, but this is definitely like a classic album, especially out of the early 2000s. I'm definitely going to give this a pretty raised score, and I wasn't expecting to. I know that Nickelback normally gets hated on pitches like that. They're kind of one of the more vanilla rock artists that they tend to be more stereotypical and kind of seen in like a negative fashion, I'd have to say, but I really didn't have much of a problem at all with this particular product. Like I said, it's going to get a classic score. It's up there. Definitely has some quality hits on here. The riffage is pretty excellent. I definitely feel like the instrumentation of this particular album is just top notch. I'd have to say it's some excellent type concepts, at least in terms of vanilla rock. In terms of like an affable kind of radio ready type stuff that would just kind of be something that would sell units and pitches like that, I'd have to say it's just a good concept kind of get some of this just being able to suppose. There are like Metallica shreds harder, Slipknot shreds harder, Godsmack shreds harder in some cases. Folks like that, I'd have to say. There's some other ones like Mushroomhead, Marilyn Manson, folks like that, White Zombie, some of those type folks. But I just would have to say this is pretty good fashion for like a presentable type rock album, just to be able to get the something that's commercial within a relative sense. Has some good singles on here. Got to the fourth single, pretty good pitch for that. It says a lot of affability about it. Some radio staples that were pretty inescapable throughout like 2003, 2004, and pitches like that. And it's just an overall pretty well-rounded project, just to be able to say. So it's just the concept, despite the fact that the hate that Nickelback, that Chad Kroeger and Nickelback kind of tends to get, I still feel like this is basically like a classic album. I'd say damn near just within the concept. I know that classic would I know that classic would be somewhat subjective to like certain rock artists just within that relative pitch, but I did thoroughly enjoy this particular project. I do feel like from my point of view in pitches like that, this would definitely be a pretty superb classic, I would have to say, and definitely is something to be appreciated. I suppose I definitely would have to look at it from another point of view and just get retroactive with this as far as the particular pitch kind of goes, because Nickelback was definitely a band that had radio staples on the radio every summer, damn near pitches like that. 2001, 2003, 2005, 2008, even 2011, 2014, some of those type times just to be able to get in particular. And they usually had more than one or two. So that's just the concept. So the long road was definitely pretty good. But there were four singles off this particular album. And I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of these. So basically, Some Days, the first single, is a real nice one. This is like a vintage kind of 2000s evening dredge makeshift of a song, I had to say. Some Days, like a vintage 2000s evening dredge of a song, I had to say in particular. It's like a makeshift drew. I would definitely feel like this song has a killer hook, and it's the stretching quality about it, I had to say in particular. And this is a pretty good vehicle bop. So this is definitely one that most folks have probably heard by this point. It's a real top 10 single that charted on like the top 10 of the Billboard 100, I'd have to say. I think it hit like number one or number two on like the rock charts in the United States as far as that pitch kind of went along with this. So it was a pretty big deal back in 2003, 2004. It was a pretty good pitch, just another follow up type hit to get apart from their Silver Side Up album from 2001. So it was a good pitch to have them return to form and just be able to nail some of these. This is definitely one that was probably just cranked out of car stereos, pitches like that, just being able to hear some of those type ones. But basically one of those makeshift Drew kind of radio staples that was just perfect for like the times between like 3 o'clock, 3:30 p.m. to about 7 o'clock p.m. pitches like that. Just some real good evening dredge. But then that's what Nickelback is kind of known for, those sorts of car stretchers that were just some summer malaise and this evening dredge as far as that particular kind of happens. This is that single for Nickelback on that particular one. The ones that you get tired of and you just get sick of hearing on the radio because you hear it so many damn times. That song off this particular album would be Someday. But they do have some other hits. Figured You Out is the second single. This is a real nice one. This is like a summer kind of outing romp of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some good local noise and affable hop and bop energy this song particularly kind of gives, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just a great get turned up type tune, I'd have to say. So this is pretty similar to like just some typical kind of romp type music, like I was saying, just a simple concept of just like some backyard barbecue type music and just some backyard barbecue type music and pitches like that. I'd have to say in particular, just an excellent concept to kind of get here. I'd have to say just a real good, just kind of local kind of noise. I'd have to say just one just around the neighborhood, some of those type pitches. I'd have to say in particular, just an excellent type concept kind of get. Just really appreciate the lazy kind of summer energy. This one's like a relatively good 1-2 punch. There are some ones on here that feel like a good 1-2 or 1-2-3 type punch. I feel like Someday, Figured You Out, And then there's like another song on here like Do This Anymore that are just some good Apple type ones to kind of hear in succession, just within that relative sense of just some ones, even though it's more common to kind of listen to rock albums just on like the standard album that you purchase. I feel like some of these can be thrown in like a mixed CD or something like that, like Someday, Figured You Out, and Do This Anymore, and it'd be just a relative just evening jur, some of those concepts of just listening to some ones and being like, hey, these are some good songs just to be able to appreciate just within that evening kind of dredge. That's a good concept, but this one just has a little bit more summery type energy towards it, just some basic kind of kickback, just relative kind of smoke a sweet, smoke a swisher sweet, some of those type pitches. Just appreciate the evening air, I'd say. Feeling Way Too Damn Good is another nice one. This is a real lazy type song. Really appreciate this one. It's good concept. Kind of get this. I mean, more of these. Apart from Someday was like the anchor of the song. Someday was like the anchored hit. That was like the one that crossed over to pop radio as far as that particular pitch can happen, or at least commercial radio. The one that you would have heard with folks like, Beyonce or folks like that, or Eminem, some of those type folks that had to say it was just kind of the concept as far as being able to say that Figured You Out and Feeling Way Too Damn Good were some rock chart type ones, but I definitely think Figured You Out might have hit #1 on like the rock charts, but all of these did pretty good. All of them were top 10 singles on the rock charts, but Feeling Way Too Damn Good was basically like a simmering kind of summer evening haze of a song that had to say in particular. It's like a feel good kind of post grunge sludge of a song that had to say, and it's a pretty relaxed gem. So I definitely appreciate this one. Just a little bit lazier, same kind of malaise that Someday kind of has. Just a little bit more affable type one, at least in a more relaxed type sense. Just having a brew in your hand, something like that. Just really appreciating the summer skies and this pitches like that. It's kind of some good kickback. This one's not quite as work shift. This one's a little bit more of a relaxer. This one's not quite as work shift, I'd have to say, but it's a good enough concept just to be able to have some of these kickback type ones, just to be able to have. This is definitely some job music, I'd have to say, but a lot of this, most of this album, just you can tell by the album cover, a lot of this is just between like the hours. There's a lot of songs on here that are just between, not counting like the riff heavy type ones. A lot of these are just kind of between, like, I would say 3 o'clock p.m. with just like another 40 or so minutes left to work to about 7 o'clock p.m. as you get ready to step out. But that's just some of the ones on here. Feeling Way Too Damn Good is definitely some good simmering type haze just to kind of get. And then Because of You is the fourth single, and this is a real nice one. This is like an edgier kind of night venue noise of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This one gets you pumped, I would definitely have to say, and this one reeks of like early 2000. This particular song reeks of like early 2000s styles, I'd have to say in particular, and this just has some wicked riffage. So this reminds me of something that Evanescence or Linkin Park would kind of do within that relative sense. Just kind of like a 2000s type fare, one of those type riffage that you would hear on like a DVD when it tells you not to copyright music and pitches like that. I'd have to say, as far as that particular kind of goes, I don't want to say it's cheesy. It's just kind of the concept. It just really reeks of something out of 2001 or 2000, when the initial kind of, back when DVDs were brand new and some of those type pitches as far as that particular kind of one. Just I appreciate these concepts. It has some good concepts here, just being able to post some of that. Just kind of a good one. It's a nice party starter. I would definitely have to say this is kind of one that's just a little bit more recreational. This one's not as much evening dredge or just like the post grunge sludge that a lot of this album particularly kind of portrays. But it's just an excellent concept, kind of get some house party type ones, and just overall, I mean, this could almost be nightclub in some sense, night venue, bar hopping, sports bar, places like that, some of those type affairs, restaurant type music just to be able to get. But I feel like this one in particular, maybe songs like Flat on the Floor and Throw Yourself Away are a little bit more for like restaurant night type flash. But I definitely feel like Because of You is just more of like a house party type one to kind of get a little bit more recreational hangout type fare, just within a sense of being more with your buds more so than something formal. This is kind of the concept, but that's the basic concept about the singles on this album. So there's 11 songs on this album, and out of those 11, I wound up recommending 10. So yeah, this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. The only song I don't recommend in some fashion on here would just be See You at the Show. And to talk about that one real quick, this is basically just kind of some evening dredge of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's just kind of one. This is just kind of a more malaise type one, pretty similar to like Feeling Way Too Damn Good, but just like a worse variation of that one, I'd have to say in particular. It's just kind of almost in a sense like a wind down type tune, just kind of an Apple type one, just to be able to say, let's get crunk later as far as that pitch kind of goes, but it's just kind of a lazy type one that just didn't really have the affable energy. I mean, it's a nice one to kind of get to be able to have in certain fashions just for congregating, just to get ready to meet up later, but just didn't really have like the instrumentation type fare that was quite as compelling compared to Feeling Way Too Damn Good and Someday and some of those type ones. But still, this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. Every song on this album just hits like a blockade. I just would say just that is just that good. I'd say that there's like a special edition that has like a cover song that's by Elton John, some pitches like that. Some other ones I might review, like the bonus disc of that one day. I'd have to say in particular, but the standard edition of this album is a classic. So Basically, the other songs I recommend on here would be Flat on the Floor is a real nice one. It's like a summery kind of bar hopping backyard rager of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a good pairing with Because of You, I would definitely have to say, and this is a pretty good evening hit. So this is just a nice one. Just some of these, the riffage on this particular album, I definitely felt like Nickelback was a lot more post grunge, but a lot of this is not as full blown post grunge as like it may seem. There's just some ones on here, like I know I was saying that some of this is like evening dredge, but a lot of this is just stationed for like mid late day, evening, and early night, just the pitches of getting crunk and heading to like those sports bars and bar hopping and some of those type pitches. But I just look after it. Like it's just an excellent concept because the riffage on here is pretty good. They do have some turn up type songs, so despite the fact that they're kind of post grunge and alternative metal, they do have some riff heavy party starters and kickstarters to kind of get for some craziness, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. That's definitely one. But then the tempo switches up with Should Have Listened. This is a nice one. This one's pretty similar to Someday and Feeling Way Too Damn Good, and then Do This Anymore, some of those type ones. This is like a vanilla kind of post grunge hazer, I'd have to say in particular. This is like a vanilla kind of post grunge hazer, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a stock kind of Nickelback. The song's like a stock kind of Nickelback day after hours dredge of a song, I'd have to say. And this is just this song has some good instrumentation and production on there. So this is just kind of like an acoustic type one. This is a nice one that just feels like typical fashion. If you've listened to Nickelback's 2005 album, some of those ones on there, they got to like the eighth single on their particular 2005 album. So it just feels like a lot of the early is like an early bird type song for some of that type of stuff that wound up on that particular project. I'd have to say is this kind of a concept. This feels like a stock and this relatively vanilla Nickelback type song to kind of get. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept. This feels like every other Nickelback song. Not to say that in a bad way, but it's just kind of the concept. It's just one you heard. If you think of like a typical kind of Nickelback type song, this would be one that's kind of similar to that fashion. Just the same kind of evening wailing dredge that just goes along with their choruses and pitches like that. But it is a nice one. Just nails it pretty well. It's just like it's just probably like a B side to like a song like Someday or something like that. I'd say it's a good concept. Believe It or Not, it's a pretty nice one. This is like an energizing kind of evening spice traverse of a. Believe It or Not, is like an energizing evening spice of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some traverse enjoyment, I would definitely have to say, and this is like a good pairing with Throw Yourself Away, I'd have to suppose. Pretty dope concept, get some of these. So like I was saying, the riffage on a lot of these is just pretty thrilling. This is definitely one, not quite as much venue noise as much as it is this car traverse, just getting excited, getting ready to get to the place to get some turn up kind of going. So it's just the concept. A lot of these riffage kind of goes with certain moments. There are some ones that are just kind of getting ready to get started. There's some ones like Because of You, I would feel like, and Flat on the Floor that are kind of more in the moment, kind of being there. Some of those type moments of already not so much preparing to get there, but already kind of there. But then there's some ones like, there's some songs like Believe It or Not and Another Hole in the Head that are just different pitches, just being able to say that they're kind of more getting ready to get there, I would have to say. So a good concept. Another Hole in the Head is a pretty nice one. Speaking to that one, it's like a quick pace kind of social wind of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some out and about kind of evening noise. I would definitely feel like kind of spicy song for ladies. On top of that, I'd have to say pretty good song for that in particular. And it's like a snappy. And the song is pretty snappy for an album cut, I'd have to say. So this one feels like it could have been a single. This is definitely one. This really has that car traverse. No, this one is just vehicle bound. This really feels like a nice traverse type one that just feels like a stretcher that could be played on the go and pitches like that. I'd say just a real nice one to kind of get as far as that would particularly kind of happen. I just look after it. It's just got some good affability towards it. Just a real catchy type one. This radio ready snap, I'd have to say, just another hit for Nickelback, I'd have to say. And then Do This Anymore is a nice one. It's like a good 1-2 punch with Someday, I would have to say in particular. It has pretty good, relatively, it's more laid back kind of production type fare on here. It's just a good concept of that. It's like the same traverse. The song has like the same traverse kind of moody dredge as Someday, I would have to say in particular. It's the same kind of ambient, kind of more, it's that same kind of malaise kind of ambience about it that just kind of feels like a lazy evening as far as that pitch will kind of happen with it. And this is just like a stock kind of quality album cut, I'd have to say in particular. So this one, I do feel like some of these would just work for a pretty good pitch of just like that dredge of just getting done with work and some of that type fare. Really appreciate the affability of some of these type ones. They're hooky, they work pretty well, they just have a feel good type vibe, just the thrill of it. It's not so much a concept of just being done. It's not so much a concept of being done with work and then just going and being bored and pitches like that. I'd say it's just an affable type concept to appreciate some of these. It's the melodies and the overall presentation. Some of these type songs just works within the concept of just knowing that it's going to be thrilling as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. Just an excellent concept kind of get some of these that just has some recreational type vibes that are affable and just really spark up some energy to really get. So it's just kind of the concept about it. When I think of Third Eye Blind or Marcy Playground, some of those type folks, I kind of feel like that format of like dredgy kind of evening haze type music kind of in some senses is just more wind down type fare, but I just feel like the concept behind it just has like a certain spark about it that just kind of has the affability of just, even if you are just going home to watch the news or watch football or watch sports, something like that, or just kind of watch some TV, Netflix, some of those type pitches, it just has an affable type punch about it that even so, you could get just being able to get some Popeyes and some spicy food, some pitches like that, and just be able to have some enjoyment. Just the thrill of it's just not so much depressive, I'd have to say. So that's a good concept. But it is dredgy and it is moody. That's one thing I haven't mentioned too much about the word moody that much with Nickelback. It is kind of that moodiness, just in particular. It's not necessarily emo, but it just kind of has some of that kind of stoic kind of moodiness about it, just within that particular pitch. But it's kind of affable, just within the sense, because it does have some of that ragey. Some of these heavy riff type songs are pretty get you energized, I'd have to say. So it's just the concept that it's moody, not as moody as Three Doors Down or some other alternative metal bands, but it just kind of has the concept that it's there, but it's just kind of composed about it, just within the sense that it just has it's just not depressive or it's wallowing, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. But and then Throw Yourself Away is a pretty nice one. It's like a pounding kind of getting started with the night kind of turn up of a song, I'd have to say. In particular, it's like a feel good kind of tasks done kind of tune, I'd have to say. A pretty dope concept for that. And this is just an energizing type song. So this is definitely another type one to kind of get some thrills going as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Just another energetic type one to kind of have just in particular as far as that would kind of happen. And Throw Yourself Away is definitely some good bar type music just to be able to get in particular. It's just a real nice evening spice one. This could probably be one to play at like a house party, some pitches like that. Also, just the real thrills of just getting started with things as far as that particular kind of happens. Just some good, the social score of this album's going to get a pretty high score as well, I'd have to say, just because the affability behind a lot of these. They just have a lot of casual appeal on top of that, I have to say. I mean, I would say within a relative aspect, if you don't know folks that just really morbidly hate Nickelback, I'd have to say a lot of this, the riff is just affable and just has a lot of casual appeal within a relative sense, just because they're kind of here and there with like their reception. But I still would have to say it works for what it is, just depending upon kind of the trajectory about it. So that's kind of the thing. But yeah, the score gets a 10 out of 10. I realize that certain rock critics and pitches like that, they would say otherwise within certain senses. But yeah, I feel like this album's a classic. Definitely like the concept of it, just the riffage, the overall enjoyment factor, 4 good singles, pitches like that, the energy factor of it. Just a lot of this just has a lot of good thrilling type times and just gets excited for evening. Just got done with work, pitches like that. Some of those type pairs, I'd have to say. Some good riffage, some good house party riffage, and just overall turn up that just works extremely well. And that leads me to the social score. I'm going to go ahead and give the social score. I'll give the social score like a 9.75, just because the quality behind it is just really stellar. I'd have to say in particular, these are just all affable. I would have to say in particular, the casual type appeal is there. They definitely have some good riffage. They definitely have more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 kickstarts just with some excellent riffage and pitches like that. I'd say just the concept behind a lot of these is get things started pretty quickly. And there's some evening dredge on here, just some great moments to feel good after your tasks are done, responsibilities are done, some of those type pitches, just being able to get started with some of that, to be able to pick up some food, get some beers, some things like that. I'd have to say some overall affability. It just has a lot of infectiousness about it that just works pretty well. So it's this kind of concept, but it gets a 9.75 just because I question the concept, just because there are folks out there that probably just will not even listen to a different opinion about Nickelback. I would have to say I realize it's just kind of here and there, just because they were so popular in the 2000s and back in those days, as far as that particular kind of went. This is a vanilla band, and they're kind of stereotypical as far as that particular kind of happens. They're like one of the factory ones, kind of like a cliche kind of band, but I feel like the quality is kind of here just because it's been 20 something years, and I kind of look after it just within the affable, being able to concern of being able to say as to whether or not it still has not, like all this new music that's kind of come about within the past few decades or so, just kind of questioning if they still have the hate for it that they had back in those days. But I think it's very affable. I think the concept behind the punch behind this is pretty strong on that stage. So it gets a 9.75 because the quality is there. So in terms of the future, like Nickelback put out an album in 2022, so I haven't gotten to that one. There's only a few more Nickelback albums I need to review, like their 96 and 98 albums. I want to say I've reviewed most other products. I've actually reviewed quite a bit of Nickelback. I need to make like a Nickelback playlist. I'll probably have done that soon enough by the time you see this. I just would have to say, I don't know if I reviewed their 2014 album, but there's probably only like 2 or 3, maybe 4 at most Nickelback projects I still need to get to. So we'll get to a few more of these, but this is definitely like a classic here. It's an inspired Nickelback, and it definitely shouldn't be ignored. Has plenty of good turn up, evening dredge, and just overall house party and night venue type brewers that just really kick ass and have a lot of wickedness about them.